Hi everyone, welcome to the first house church video for our series on Mark called Uncluttered, about moving from chaos to order. And on this first Sunday, it was actually one of the big themes was moving from chaos to order. In the beginning of Mark's gospel, in the prologue, he introduces these massive themes for about 13 verses before we just shrink to a little town in Galilee. And all those massive themes are huge biblical themes. We looked at two, maybe three in depth. One was the chaos to order, and the other was the wilderness. We saw how the dove descends over Jesus, and that's similar to in Genesis when the Spirit of God hovers over the waters, and that's the Spirit bringing chaos out of order. And then we also saw that the whole thing takes place in the wilderness. These are two big themes in the Bible, and they got me thinking. Chaos is generally bad without any exception in the Bible. There might be one I missed, but for the most part, chaos is bad. The wilderness, though, isn't always bad. In fact, the wilderness is often a good place, a preferable place, a place that you want to be because it's a place where God acts. But I got to thinking that the chaos in our lives and the wilderness of our lives can often feel like the same thing. If one is bad for you, to live in chaos is bad, but wilderness is a potentially fertile place for transformation. How do you know the difference between chaos and wilderness? That was my question. My light bulb is that the difference between the two is not so much external, I don't think. It's what you're thinking about and what you're trying to do in those spaces. You know you're in chaos when you're trying to claw your way out of chaos. I think this is often what I have been guilty of, is instead of treating it as a wilderness time in my life where I am to sit still and cease striving and to focus on God and listen to the Spirit and what God has for me in this time where I feel like I'm drifting or unmoored, this wilderness time. Instead of doing that and embracing the wilderness, what I'll try to do is claw my way back to control or fixing something. I don't like the wilderness. And when you don't embrace the wilderness, it becomes chaos. So I would say the difference, and this is my light bulb moment, between chaos and wilderness is how much of the Holy Spirit are you inviting into those places? It's chaos if you're trying to do it yourself. It's wilderness if you're inviting the Holy Spirit to transform you and speak to you in that space. My conviction then was the realization that I have not made of the wilderness what I ought to. I haven't stayed there long enough. I haven't listened to God long enough. I've instead used it as a place to zoom out, take stock of life, and then return feeling a little bit stronger, able to control things. I've treated the wilderness as a place of problem solving instead of a place where I get to know God better. And my conviction is I don't want to do that. When the next wilderness season comes, I want to recognize it as wilderness and not chaos, invite the Spirit into it, and then sit there as long as is necessary for God to do His transformative work in me, so that when the wilderness season is done, I've actually been changed. It's also, this week, 24/7 prayer, so I'm totally fine if you haven't watched this video, although if you haven't watched it, how would you know I'm totally fine with it? We've just made things really complex here at the end of the house church video. But what I'm saying is, go sign up for 24/7 prayer. If you haven't, do it as an individual, do it as a house church. These are incredibly rich times. You'll notice in the prayer guide, it's a little bit different this time. I think you'll enjoy that. Some ancient prayer practices we'll be doing together that get us beyond just simply asking for things. Be good for us, be good for this church. I invite you to be a part of that. And finally, it's Up Week. We're right on the front end of this Mark series, so invite somebody. It's a great time. They really just have to watch that first one online. You can send it to them, the background of Mark. They might get hooked, and then they'll want to come for the rest. So chase those people down that God brings to mind and invite them to church with you. Grace and peace, everyone.